Okay, so this one is going to be about our recent 40k game, our shitwell game. This was our first session where we were implementing a lot of the new mechanics the DM came up with. Because if you're someone who's listening to this who isn't in the game for some reason, the DM of that game, I guess used to play a lot of 40k, like the tabletop, and they played a few editions ago, but the rules don't change all that much, to my understanding. Like, the core way the game works has always more or less been the same. Maybe it's changed, I don't know. But at least in the past, 3 or 4 editions, it's basically been the same. Which, that's not really something I'm going to go over here. Because I don't fully know exactly how it works. I know it's mostly a D6 system where, you got a bunch of dudes and you roll a die, like a bunch of dice that corresponds to those dudes in some way. Stronger dudes get more dice. More dudes also get more dice. So there's 2 different ways to get more dice. More dudes, bigger dudes. Just the total mass of dudes you have determines your dice. So, and my check engine light is on. So we're implementing a bunch of mechanics. The big one that was right out the gate for me was the fact that all the weapons had new properties, and lots of new properties. I can't even go into them all here, but I'm not actually sure how many of these mechanics are exactly what was in the 40k game, or it was just the DM kind of coming up with something that replicates a mechanic in the 40k game, which sounds almost like the same thing, but I guess it kind of is, but not the point. So that was one of the big ones. Weapons have a lot more individual mechanics that kind of set them apart from each other. And for the most part, it seems like a lot of those properties don't necessarily make it okay, this weapon is the best to use in 99% of situations. Or just, this weapon's the best, use that one. Which is what the case is in a lot of, not even just 5e, but just a lot of systems in general. Instead, it's more like a variety of weapons have different properties that help them out in certain situations. The big ones right away for the weapons, because we're a pretty heavily melee group. Because Space Marines swing big weapon. The difference between a chainsword and a power weapon, pretty simple. The chainsword doesn't have any inherent armor pierce. There's no armor piercing. And it has the chain property, which is a unique property unique to chain weapons. And what that does is whenever you're using a chain weapon to attack I started off calling them soft targets, but it's not soft targets, it's targets that aren't heavily armored. So there's no clean word for that, targets that aren't in heavy armor. If you're attacking a target like that, or rather a target that has some exposed flesh, however you want to describe it, it's kind of up to, it's not necessarily a hard category, it's kind of a soft category. So it's like narratively based, and it's up to DM fiat a little bit. But whenever you attack a target that's subject to the chain property, you get extra attacks on that target. So like theoretically, a weapon with chain 1, if you attack a soft target, you'll get an extra attack on that target. A good question is, I don't know if it's once per round or if it's like once per normal attack. Like if you have 2 attacks and you swing a chain weapon with chain 1, does your first attack, you land it, and I'm going to say normal attack, normal and extra attack. So you swing your first attack, your normal attack, and then chain activates, and you get a bonus chain attack on that target. Then you swing your weapon a second time with your extra attack. Then do you get a second bonus chain attack? Does it happen per attack? Per non-chain bonus attack? Good question. I think that's really interesting, and it would definitely make chain weapons probably the best for dealing with softer targets. I mean, they already, even if it's just once per turn, they kind of are. But I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I'm not sure if the mechanic actually lays it out or not. I feel like it might, and I'm just misremembering, but not the point. But then power weapons, instead, they have an armor pierce value. And they have and then instead of getting any extra attacks, they just do a flat 2d6 extra damage. It's reliable. It's probably in the majority of situations, a power weapon will be maybe not the best, the absolute best, if you're trying to optimize damage, but it will be close, or it'll be in the ballpark. Like, so generally, you could just pick a power weapon and you'd be good for 99% of situations. That's what my character went with. But against softer targets, chain weapons are going to be better. And the way armor piercing works is you have whatever your armor pierce value is. Most power weapons have an armor pierce of 2. And what that does is whenever you're attacking a target, I think it's also kind of a soft category. Not like rigidly defined, but whenever you're attacking a target, you can, you basically add 2 to your to hit value, meaning, or narratively, you ignore 2 points of their armor, which, do you want to determine, okay, is this character even being protected by armor at all? Is their AC entirely evasion determined? That's where it gets a little squiffy, but just one of those things. So just, again, a soft category, but those are 2 of the differences between those main melee weapons. Then the other main mechanic is strength versus toughness. And this is like kind of how the tabletop determines like attack and defense values. Like when you're attacking, you have a strength score and it's like 1 through 5, and the higher that number is, like the lower on the d6 you hit with, essentially. But the target's toughness value modifies that, so it's kind of like the difference between your strength and their toughness, and whether or not it's positive or negative. Like, if you have more strength than they have toughness, then you get a bonus. But if they have toughness, then you have strength, then you get a penalty, essentially. And the very first version of the mechanic had it was a additional to hit modifier, which the DM since walked back. It probably just didn't, like, thinking about it, it was just like more like extra to hit modifiers that are just like adding more and more pluses to hit. So if we're gonna get anything done, targets are gonna need, like, you know, more and more and more AC, which, you know, you don't want those values necessarily floating too far. But I mean, theoretically, you can do something where, you know, enemies have like a really, really high toughness but a low AC. So, but I'll get to that in a second. But instead, what they do is their damage modifiers. So, same thing, your strength versus their toughness, and then the difference is added or subtracted from damage. So, this, I think it works really well. It's an extra layer of attack, of like damage nuance, I think. It, like, at first glance, I thought like, oh, you know, it's each point of difference is worth 1 point of damage that you can subtract or minus. And it's like, that doesn't, like, on paper, it doesn't feel like it's great, but, you know, your strength is determined mostly by your whatever offensive stat you're using. So the majority of us have an offensive stat of 7. And your toughness is determined by your constitution. And the majority of us have a 6 in that, except for our psyker, our wizard analog, that has a toughness of 8 for some reason. Just went all in on fucking constitution. But it worked out in his favor, actually, because while he has like the lowest AC of all of us, kind of the lowest HP, he has this constant higher defense value driving down damage that he takes. So he takes a lot less chip damage than we do, generally. Like, you know, enemies are swinging on us and they're only doing like 4, 5, 7 damage, but we're reducing it by like 3, whereas he's reducing it by like 5, because he has, like, you know, my character has a 6 con and his has an 8, so he's reducing it by a whole 2 more. If you're taking 14 attacks, that's 28 damage you're eliminating right there with that kind of difference. Like, that's a lot of damage to reduce. I think it actually works. It works a lot better than I thought it did on paper. And when it swings in the other way, like, that's adding a lot of damage that we're doing. Typically, like, enemies that my character was attacking, usually outmatching their toughness by like 2 at least. So I was getting an extra 2 damage on every swing with 4 attacks. That, you know, that's 8 extra damage he's doing. It's not crazy, but it's a decent little chunk when you're attacking like big targets that you still beat out on that modifier. And it's on small targets, like especially smaller targets like regular soldiers, they're going to have even lower toughness. Their toughness is going to be 2 or 3. There you're getting an extra 4 damage, and on a single attack, that's probably enough to push you over the edge and one-shot them. That can be huge. So especially on, like, if we start finding, like, you know, regular soldier. I'm going to use the Space Marine 2 designation here, Minoris, Majoris, Extremis, and Terminus. If we find more Minoris enemies that have higher con values, that could matter, because they have essentially the same amount of HP as a lot of the other Minoris enemies we fight, but their higher toughness values pushes their resistance a little more. And, you know, it's just a form of resistance that's like a little more granular, and I think it allows for a little bit more nuance. It's interesting. But there's a lot of mechanics in these weapons to go over, and, you know, there's so many different mechanics that we've all made we're all pretty melee focused characters, but we haven't even like, we've probably played with maybe like a quarter of the weapon properties in general. Like nobody in the party has a melt-a-gun, for example, or any weapon that does that. And melta weapons have armor reducing properties, where if they have a melta value of whatever, and whenever you hit with that weapon, it reduces the target's AC by that value. We haven't played around with that, but enemies have. So, you know, that's going to be something too. Like, do we, for other characters we might make, that's probably going to start to become a factor. Or just backup weapons. Like, okay, we're going to start carrying around a melt-a-gun for particularly hardened, like particularly high AC targets. You know? And there's lots of different options. In particular, there's some dudes that we just fought. Like the dudes we just fought, one guy had Melta Fists, which let him do Melta melee attacks. That might be something my character is interested in, because my character's currently using a set of claws that have bolt pistols built into the gauntlets, so he can switch between them. He can use ranged attacks, he can use his claw attacks. But depending on the exact scenario, because we have prep before each mission, he might want to switch those out for melt-a-guns instead. That way he'll be able to attack hardened targets, but really at the same time his claws are good for attacking hardened targets anyway, because they have innate armor pierce. So that's probably not going to be his style, but maybe someone else in the party might want to carry a melt-a-gun as backup. Even though something like a melt-a-gun it's not small, it's not easy to carry around, but might be worth it. It depends on loadouts and stuff, because the Space Marines are really, really strong, especially even in their power armor, they're even stronger, but there's physically only so much gear you can carry around. Like, I was building a backup character who's going to be basically a rogue. It's, the system we're using has a reskin and a rework of 5e. And most of the classes were like touched and rebalanced, except for basically the barbarian, the fighter, and the rogue. The barbarian got the subclasses switched up a bit, but the fighter and the rogue are just 1-to-1. They're just the soldier and the renegade are just the fighter and the rogue. So, but it works. I wanted to make a character like that. He's going to be a sniper type character. He carries a big sniper rifle, but something like a sniper rifle is a heavy weapon. So that's going to limit what he can really carry. If he wasn't carrying a heavy weapon, he could probably maybe carry like 2 primary weapons. Like carry a bolt gun, then carry like a melta or something, like carry 2 of those, and then still have enough room for like a pistol, a sword, something like that. But the way he is now, he's going to be carrying probably just the sniper rifle and then a sword and a shield. Because one, if he's ever in a situation where he can't use the sword or can't use the sniper rifle, he's either going to be leaving or he's going to be using his melee weaponry, which, thinking about it now, we don't have, like, okay, I want to talk about the sniper rifle. It has a property called precision, which is a very sniper rifle type of property. What it does, maybe it's not named perfectly, I feel like the name could be different, but I'm not sure what I would name it instead. Basically, what it does is for every round, you keep the target in your field of view, and you don't. I think it's either you don't attack them, or you don't move. It's one of those. I think it's you don't attack them. Every turn you don't attack them, you lower your critical range by the precision value. This sniper rifle has a precision of 3. So, you keep a single target in your field of view. For a round, your critical threshold changes from 20 to 17. So you roll a 17 or higher, you get a crit. And then also, this weapon, when it rolls a crit, instead of doing double damage, it does triple damage. And also in this game, a particular homebrew rule that the DM really likes is crits roll max damage, max extra damage. And you add your modifier, it's just everything. So, as a result, a critical hit with the sniper rifle, I think a normal hit will do roughly in the 25-ish 30 range, because it's a D12 plus a 2D6. Oh, and this character was doing sneak attack too, so he was hitting 40, 50 damage. A crit hit about 150, just nonsensical amounts of damage. Almost enough to take out almost most targets in one shot with this. So, that's triple your damage. That's probably worth not attacking for 2 rounds to build up your precision and land that. Especially if you have any other properties that occur on a critical hit, or if it's just a very, very difficult to hit target, then just fucking do this. Okay, I shoot it. Oh, I do a gajillion damage. All right, I'm gonna hide. And I'll see you in 2 turns. But I was thinking, I just had the thought, there's no melee equivalent of that, and there doesn't have to be, but there's no stiletto mercy killing weapon, I guess is what it would be, because that's not how melee fights work. That would have to be an assassin, a stiletto type of knife that would do something like that. But I don't think it works that well for a melee weapon. Maybe there's something else that could be done to support a more melee focused rogue play style, but I don't think it really needs it. Because you can still do all the normal stuff as a rogue, and especially as a Space Marine, you get shield training, so you can just use a shield. So that's one of the reasons he has one, because in melee he doesn't have a bunch of attacks, he doesn't have a whole bunch of extra stuff, so he either needs to leave, which cunning action lets him do, which with the precision property, that also helps to kind of make moving around and needing to set up and switch weaponry, it makes it feel a little better. Okay, you're not wasting this turn, you're building up your precision. So that's a thing. And even then, if he has his sniper rifle out and he gets cornered, he might not necessarily switch to his sword. He might just leave. thought I was like getting called in all of a sudden. So, yeah, that's mostly it. That's all I got for you. It was good. It was a good game. I'm looking forward to the next one. Blah blah blah. I'm distracted now.